250 million years ago, much of the land surface of the Earth was too dry for permanent life of any sort. And so it would have remained but for two fantastic things. And of all the happenings in evolution, I reckon this comes closest to a miracle, because just as evolution was busy shaping the conifers and the flowering plants, the plants that would one day rule the dry Earth, the Earth itself was being shaped almost as if ready to receive them. Deep within the bowels of the Earth were beginning to push the great landmass apart, sending the continents drifting their way across the face of the globe. Products of evolution. Our story followed New Zealand into isolation, a living museum of this most important phase of evolution. One small land of opportunity. These are Hamilton's frogs, probably the rarest in the world. Like all amphibians, they depend in part on a wet skin through which they breathe. Here, there are no pools of water, so the spawn is laid in the dampest, darkest corners of the pile of rocks in which they live. And this is the first ever film of a baby froglet not long hatched. What a beautiful tale, and it's all complete with swimming muscles, but of course they're useless in its rocky home, mere memories of past ages of evolution, when their ancestors' tadpoles had the freedom of larger, wetter land. Tuatara, all that is left of a group of reptiles which took up life on the land long before the dinosaurs evolved. If only I can catch one, what a story it could tell. His mouth, perhaps he'll show us his primitive character. Now there, now that shows he's not a lizard at all, because you see the teeth there. Now those teeth are simply sort of bumps along the edge of the jawbone, and all the modern reptiles that have teeth which sit in sockets, not unlike ours. So he really is a primitive guy and deserves the name a living fossil. His ancestors have been doing well hereabouts for more than 230 million years. Not a bad record. Now, if the scales on the Tuatara's tummy remind you of those at the top of a chicken's leg, then it's no mere coincidence, for the reptiles and the birds do share the same line of evolutionary ascent. However, the scales aren't there to help zoologists find out who's related to who, but they're there to protect the animal against losing too much water, and they do it very efficiently. So much so that the dry, scaly skin is of no use for breathing. So the Tuatara, like all the land reptiles, must rely on a nice pair of lungs. 4 strong legs working against a long backbone, ideal for standing up in the thin air and taking stock of the food as it goes by. And when it comes to looking after the next generation, no expense is spared. Each baby Tuatara grows in its own private developing tank, safe inside a waterproof shell. The only reason that the Tuatara is still found here is that these small islands split away before evolution had got much further, before there were any flowering plants or mammals or even birds. New Zealand sailed off into the southern seas, an ark without its full complement on board, and the Tuatara, well, it simply went on living here with little or no competition and few predators, king of its own island domain. But however well adapted, the animals would have not got far on the land without the plants. Green plants had to prepare the way, providing cool shade and abundant food, and of course they faced the same problems of life in the dry. The ferns, mosses and liverworts were the true pioneers, for they are the amphibians of the plant kingdom, and as such they can only grow in abundance in the dampest spots, much as they did when the real land plants were busy sorting themselves out. And there's no getting away from the fact that these giants have cracked the problems of life on dry land.
Kauri pines, the largest trees in the world?
Well, at least when it comes to volume of timber, because you see, most ordinary trees, they taper from the bottom to the top. Not these, a gigantic column of timber, 30 metres up to the first branch, and of course it's strong enough to hold up the weight of the branches and all those leaves, and it's made of millions of tiny tubular cells which carry the water from the roots way up to the leaves up in the sunlight. A perfect land plant. But what about the problems of reproduction?
Well, kauris are conifers and conifers bear cones, and these hold the secret of the next breakthrough.
Need, final key to life on the land, a minute survival kit.
Now in there is an embryo, and it's nicely packed and protected in a nice woody coat.
All the information needed to make another Kauri giant. But you see, if that's going to get a good start in life, then it's got to get away from the sphere of influence of gigantic mum here, away from the great mat of roots and the pool of deep shade which is cast by the branches and the leaves. Now that's why each seed is provided with a nice offset wing, because you see, the cones shatter way up on the high branches, and when the seeds fall, they spiral their way out, moving away from the tree trunk, off into the forest to start up a life of their own.
It's going to take at least 800 years for that to reach massive maturity, and then perhaps it will linger on into an old age of as much as 1,500 years.